Alright, this is my 64 Comet. She's kind of a pit right now. This is just a test video. But I figured I'd go ahead and show you what she looks like before I actually start work on her. I bought this from a gentleman that I work with. I was a good friend of him for 10 years. And he was a mentor for me throughout my OA time and time in Scouts. When I bought the car, as I understood it, it belonged to his son, who just lost interest in it and let it sit behind a garage for some years under a tarp and on top of a rubber slab or something like that. And as you can see, that didn't do the car any favors. Before them, the story that I get is owned by an old woman, and I guess she ran and drove it pretty good, and she ended up having a rear main seal go out of it. She took it in, had it replaced, and just a few months later the rear main seal went out of it again, and they just left it sitting at the shop. And I'm not sure if that's when Mr. Runchy, the guy who I bought it from, bought the car, or if there's some other story there. But as you can see, the rust is very, very extensive. The trunk is gone. You can actually see through. Even the frame rails are almost rusted in half, right at the joint where the rear leaf spring comes in and connects into the frame. As you can see, the gas tank's gone. There's leaves and rust, and I think this has a large part to do with the fact that it had a vinyl trunk mat, and that the trunk had metal tape placed over the seams, which trapped the moisture in and again didn't do it any favors. You can actually see here on the lip of the trunk where the actual seal would go, there's actually quite extensive rust and even holes through the trunk. I mean, this is pretty thick metal here, so for it to rust like that, I mean, that's pretty crazy. But all that's going to have to be ripped out and replaced, and that's not easy. To make matters even worse, it appears throughout the time that the car was driven, there were actually numerous dents put in place. You can see that one here. And when all the trim and everything was on this, you couldn't actually see those. So it's kind of like I didn't really know what I was getting into. Again, this was my first real project car. So I guess I pay for what I don't know about. You can see there's some white surface rust on the top of the car, but other than that, it's pretty straight. The front fenders remarkably are in good shape. There is some rust just barely starting to show through on the inside of the panel. There is extensive rust, but mostly surface rust. There's nothing really heavily pitted. I've already had to take the hood off. We already finished the hood, and the rear trunk lid is almost complete. But everything's been taken off the front of the car just so we could have access to it. I mean, it's got the little 200 straight 6 in it. Actually, I believe it's a 170, I'm sorry. And as I understand it, that is a replacement carburetor. I do have the original, but when they replaced the carburetor, they did not actually have the linkage to go with it. So you're going to have to figure out something there, or have the old one rebuilt and have the old linkage installed. Because you can see, right there is the old linkage, and that would come up to about this side of the carburetor, but it's supposed to hook up over here, so we'll have to figure out something with that. All the wiring was intact on the car, however it was heavily corroded, and that's all going to have to be replaced. The engine does run incredibly. We actually went ahead and put gasoline in it and lubed up the cylinders, and then we actually went ahead and fired her up and took off like a pissed off bumblebee. But all the gas lines, all the transmission lines, are rusted out of it, so all of that's going to have to be replaced before this thing even really runs. We're going to have to take the engine out of the car and rebuild it. You can see the battery, where the battery sits, the battery tray is actually completely rusted through, so that's going to have to be replaced. And see what kind of damage it did to the front fascia here. But that's the project car. That's the exterior of the car again. The doors, the rocker panels, the front fender, all of that's in pretty good shape. The hood was okay, as you can see here. And the rear trunk lid was somewhat okay. The top of it was alright. It had a couple dents that I've been working on. And there is rust holes all along the edge of here, so all of that is going to have to be replaced. But we'll see what we can do. The worst part again is the trunk and the lower rear quarters, which, as you can see here, all of that's been marked to be cut off and replaced. The bumpers will have to be replaced. The chrome's just no good on them. I could have them re-chromed, but it's $1,500 a bumper to have them re-chromed. It's just $700 to get 2 brand new bumpers. Granted, they're probably cheap Chinese metal, but it's what's in the budget for right now. Again, the rust is really bad on the rear quarters. So much so that I'm not even sure if we'll be able to save it. I gave the man my word that I would get her back on the road, and that's what I would do. If this were just some other car, I probably would have just junked it, because this thing is really, really bad. You can see the doors actually are, the hinges are remarkably sturdy for something like this, but all the floors are gone, and that actually goes into the front frame rail extensions, which again is no good. The dash is in really good shape, with the exception of they did cut into the radio plate, which is something I'm going to have to replace. The headliner's toast. That'll have to be gone through. The front seats, they look alright from a distance, but when you get up closer to them, you can actually see the seat foam is coming through the actual fabric, so the fabric's so thin that it's just junk. And of course there's rips in it, so that'll have to be replaced. But the rear seat is in pretty good shape. Now the only bad thing about this is, in order for me to have a matching interior, they do not make this front bench seat cover. So I'll have to get a solid black one. If I do that, I'll probably have to get a rear back one, unless I have, of course, custom made, which is going to be expensive and not in the budget. I did manage to find me a set of brand new, well, not brand new, but better shape tail light holders. And of course all the trim is with the car, and it's in good shape because it is stainless. It just polishes it out. I've already begun disassembling the car. It's going to be a slow process because, again, every single nut and bolt is just rusted solid. So this is something that's going to take quite a bit of time and quite a bit of money, and it'll probably take some time to replace it. There's a crack in this glass here. I kind of like it. It adds a bit of character, but I will replace it. And then the quarter panel, or the quarter window on the other side, is gone, so I'll have to find another one. I did order one, and it is in the car, but it's for a hardtop and not a sedan, two-door sedan, so it's no good to me. Went ahead and started removing some of the rust and paint on the top of the car with an Eastwood bristle disc. Highly recommend it to anybody who's working on a project car. It is amazing. So that's the old junker. We'll see what we can do with her. Alright.